Hello and welcome to Talking with Nana. Thank you so much for tuning in. I don't know about you, but if you're one of those persons, every month you get tired of this, and this, all the bills, and want to know how do you begin to manage them and still keep the dollars, $100 in your pocket. Joining me is a good friend of mine. I respect her, I trust her, and I know that her work has worked well for so many people in Metro Detroit, and also it's going to be doing great things in America. Her name is Gabriella Bartholow. She's the CEO of Alpha Advisory Group, and she's sitting here with me, and I thank you so much for joining me. Gabe, I have to call you Gabe. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Nana, and congratulations on the Talking with Nana show. I'm so excited to be here.
We've worked together once before, and we talked about this, how to come out of being in debt to adding more to your income. Let's deal with that. A lot of folks are just trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. How do you get out of this situation? Is it just a mindset first?
Well, Nana, it's a lot of reasons. First of all, I would say that folks need to pull their credit. And let me just let everyone know that you can pull your credit online, even if you don't have a computer. Go to the library, www.transunion.com, Equifax.com, and Experian.com. And we really need to start with looking at our credit to see where we're at. Once we've addressed the credit, and I know we're going to talk about that more later in the show, what we want to do is actually pull all our bills out. Lay them on the table or on the floor or in your office, wherever you work at, and see exactly how much interest we're paying, how much the minimum payments are, and then we need to put on top of that list our net income, because we need to see how the wealth in our personal lives is being distributed. Is it growing or is it decreasing because of these mounting bills?
So you pull your credit reports, you look at your bills, you begin to say, okay, this is what I can pay. How do you begin to take what is a priority based on what is not a priority and start paying it off? And also contacting creditors. Let's talk about the creditors, because you know that is a big thing, and I know you have given people the secrets to really dealing with it and how to really kind of empower yourself with it and not dealing with the harassing phone calls.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to give you some good news. There is nothing that time and money cannot cure with credit. And no matter how huge it may seem to you now, we're going to take order of priority. The first priority is if we have a mortgage. We must pay our mortgage, because any creditor will look at your credit report and say, did they pay the roof over their head on time? So if you don't have a mortgage and it's rent, then they're looking at your rental history. So we got to take care of that first, because we need somewhere to live. Second, if we have an automobile payment, we want to make sure we pay that, because that's your second order of priority, especially in the state of Michigan, where you have to have wheels pretty much to get around, be it to make a living, go grocery shopping, everything, although we have a small bus system. At any rate, but that's another subject. The next priority would be your credit cards or any installment loans that you have. The thing with credit cards that people sometimes don't realize is the due date on the credit card is when it's due. There is no grace period like a home, which may be 15 days, and then with a car, which is normally 10-day grace period. There's no grace period with credit cards. So as soon as you don't pay that bill on the 10th, if it's due, you're reported late. And what folks don't realize is the score goes down tremendously with recent lates in any reporting agency. As soon as they're reported, it drastically makes the score go down. But back to priorities. So mortgage, automobile, installment, and then credit cards. If you do have to be late on something, actually you don't have to be late, because what you can do is call the creditors and negotiate with them that you're in a hardship situation. Sometimes we can pay the mortgage, we can pay the car note, but there's nothing left for the credit cards. So we need to call those creditors, because remember, when we signed that contract and said we would pay, the creditor cannot read our mind. We have to let them know things have financially changed for us, and we need to have a good reason. It's not because we went on vacation and spent all our money. Maybe we've lost our jobs. Maybe we have someone sick in our family. Be willing to document that, talk to them, but we have to, Nana, follow up in writing.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, when you talked about following up in writing, there is an intimidation factor there. You know, being afraid to call a creditor, being afraid to make that initial phone call because they feel pressure to make a whole payment. So for some folks, it's easier to ignore. Let's talk about the consequences and what is the verbiage you should be, what kind of conversation you should be having with creditors so that you don't feel harassed and you know your rights, because there are some consumer laws as well.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, what we have to do is be honest. We have to tell the truth, and we have to realize what situation we're in. And again, if it's a good reason, like a sickness or a layoff from a job, creditors understand that. So we have to get our mindset and our spirits, if you will, in order before we get on that phone, and not feel ashamed, but feel empowered because we're being proactive in calling them before they call us. What we want to say to them is the truth. We want to tell them exactly what's going on and why we're not able to pay that full payment. And what I have done in the past coaching people, and I've used it in my own situation coming out of a divorce, was I said to the creditor, you know, I've paid you on time when I've had the money. I'm in this predicament right now. What can you do to help me? And they said, Ms. Bartholow, how about if you just pay the interest for now? And I said, I can do that. I said, now my situation should be better in 90 days, but we'll make contact again and I will let you know. And it just so happened within a 6-month period I was out of that situation, but before that 90 days came, I called them again. I also followed up in writing the agreement we came to, because they said that they would report I'm paying my bills as agreed and not show any negative information. But because I called them before the problem hit and explained to them that I had lost a contract, they worked with me. But the key is to be proactive and not feel shame, just tell the truth.
Let's talk about working with creditors. One of the things that I think, again, as I said, the intimidation factor, you know, I'm afraid. What are the laws out there that can help protect people when you're dealing with a harassing creditor that's consistently calling because you can't make a full payment?
Well, there's one law. Let's say that normally creditors are calling you when you're late. So I talked about preventing that. So let's just say, okay, you didn't know about that. So now you've been late and they're calling you. The law says that creditors do have to treat you with respect, meaning they can't yell at you, talk to you in a negative manner, or harass you. So what you can do is if the person over the phone is not willing to talk with you in a respectful manner, always try to get to the highest person in authority that can make decisions at that company. Once you get to that person, sometimes they're still nasty. That does happen. Then what I would do is I would say, I need the name of your company, your address, and how I can contact you in writing. And you will put together a certified letter with return receipt, writing to the creditor that you no longer want them to contact you on the phone, but that you want them to put everything in writing to you. And then you can correspond with them in writing. Just remember, whatever you say in writing to them, you must commit to. So again, you need to re-examine where you are financially so that if you can make a payment arrangement with them, that you're able to really stick with it. Don't just say anything. Know what you really can do.
I'm going to shift a little bit because we talked earlier about your credit score. What is a good credit score? What is a bad credit score? And does it make a difference with each with the different creditors, whether it's Equifax, TransUnion, Transfusion? You need one to deal with them, but is it a different set of scores, you know, help for a novice? And there are certain things I'm still kind of figuring out, but since I got a friend in the financial industry, I'm going to learn everything I can. Like I said, you have people who know your money better than you do, you'll never be broke, never. But let's talk about the differences.
Okay. The credit scoring system is what's called a deductive system. So everyone starts at a 900, and as soon as they put your name on it, your social security number, and an address, numbers start coming off your score. But just to give you the range, it runs from 300 to 900. There's Equifax, there's Experian, and there's TransUnion. Each one of them have a different scoring system, Beacon, Empirica, and Fair Isaac system. They have 3 different ones. And how the scores come up, and they vary, is that some creditors report to one scoring system or credit bureau, and then some report to others. That's why I personally never seen anyone score a match exactly. They vary in numbers depending upon who reports what information to who. Now in the Midwest here, TransUnion is a very important repository. That's another word for the credit bureau, because all the banks report to them. So sometimes when you go for a loan with a bank, they really care about that TransUnion score because they know all their fellow bankers report to that. And then in different parts of the country, another one may stick out. However, we need to know what's going on with all three so that if there's any errors with either of the three of the reporting agencies, we make sure we put in writing to them to correct it. But yes, scoring does make a difference because now we live in a world where it's called tiered pricing. And your tiered pricing is based on your scoring system.
What is a tiered pricing?
Tiered pricing, like for instance in the mortgage world, which I'm also a mortgage specialist, someone that has a 720 score and up, if their debt ratio is in alignment, they're golden by signature. You know, they have the job, or they have the business, they have the score, they have assets, their debt to income's in alignment, they're golden folks. They're AAA credit, if you will. 700's a great score, but some lenders want to see even 720, so that's why I started with 720. So then there's a price for the 720 folks, there's an interest rate for the 700 score, 680 score, 660 score, 640. Every 20 points, there's a different interest rate given your circumstances. It's not that cut and dry, so let me be clear on that. However, the name of the game is to get to the 700 club.
Wow. So, quick question. What can go on your credit report and what can you debate and say this doesn't belong on my credit report? Is there something that can't go on your credit report?
Nothing that has to do with you, like religion or your medical history, things of that nature cannot go on your credit report. But I can tell you what can. Public records. That means if you're behind on your child support, they now report you to the credit bureau. It shows up. I was working on a gentleman's financing and I saw it come up. It was his son's. But still, it showed up on his in error. And let's talk about errors later in the show. However, what else can show up? Judgments, which is part of public records. Foreclosures. Anytime you're legally late on a bill, 30, 60, 90, 120 days. They will show all your past addresses, all the names that are legally you are known by, past positions, your jobs, employment. I'm trying to think of what else. I think that's pretty much everything. All your payment history. Also, what shows on your credit are inquiries, people that you've allowed to pull your credit, and then there's inquiries that are what are called promotional inquiries. Once you're with a creditor, they want to see if they can give you more credit. All of that information shows on your credit, all your personal information, your social, your address, some of them report your phone number, some of them don't. And like I said, anything public. So that's why a lot of what I teach in my seminars are preventative. Yes, I can show you how to fix it legally as well, but a lot of us have great credit. That's great. Let's maintain it. Let's protect it. Let's watch it from identity theft, divorce, adoption. I mean, anytime you have a life change, it could affect your credit.
There are two questions I have to ask you, and I have so many questions for you, Gabe. I have so many. I know we're going to have you back. We have to. Let's talk about the eras, and again, I want us to lead into bankruptcy because Michigan has the highest, and most people were filing bankrupt, and there are some lawsuits coming that's going to change a lot of this. So we want to talk about the effects of that, but since we just came from talking about credit reporting, let's deal specifically on the eras because there could be an era you want to correct it so it won't affect your score.
Absolutely. Over the years, I've dealt with credit now for over 12 years now, and I have never seen a report that was exactly the way it was supposed to be. There was always some type of error. Even people with excellent credit, there are errors on their report. So what you do is you put in writing to the Bureau. You have your report in front of you. You put in writing to the Bureau, this is what's an error. And then you make sure you identify yourself appropriately. You need to make sure you have your date of birth, social security number, all the things that Bureau says you need to turn into them that says it's you, because there's so much identity theft going on. In addition to that, you want to mail anything you mail to the credit bureaus, certified mail return receipt. Why? Because someone has to sign for it and it is dated. The law says, the Fair Credit Reporting Act says, that the credit bureau or the creditor you write to, if you're tracking it with those two methods, have to get back to you in 30 days or less. So that's why it's very important that you do that. It also lets that creditor or the consumer reporting agency know that you're an educated consumer.
Wonderful. Now let's deal with bankruptcy. That I'm hearing this the easy way out, but this goes on your credit for 7 years. 10 years.
The year 2000. They can report it for 10 years.
What are the effects? What are the pros and the cons? I don't see a pro in it, but I'm hearing saying, well, you know, now that I filed bankruptcy, I got me a new car, I got me a new house, I got all these things, and it's a scary thing, but I'm not judging anyone who's had to go through this process because we don't know what's going on in your life, but I want you to share the reality of bankruptcy with our viewers.
Okay. Let me just say that bankruptcy should absolutely be the last resort for you to get out of whatever that situation you're in. Here's the sad part about bankruptcy. It was made so easy over the past, which is changing, and we'll share what that means. But it's been made easy. I'm not stomping on lawyers, but there's some lawyers, just like in every profession, that have taken advantage of folks' ignorance and suggested bankruptcy when it shouldn't have been. A lot of folks I've counseled said, if I'd have known this, I didn't have to file. I said, well, I'm sorry you didn't go to a reputable person. But bankruptcy really is what is designed to help people in business if they have unforeseen occurrences. For instance, one person I counseled, they had a Baskin Robbins. It was in a plaza where they did all this construction work and the customers couldn't get to the stores. And it bankrupted this little strip mall. That was a legitimate reason. It put them $250,000 behind because they had just bought the franchise. They had financed their house to do it. That was, they could document that whole situation. That to me was a legitimate reason to file. They didn't know what else to do, and they didn't have any money. But there are folks I've seen that file bankruptcy for $4,000 and $5,000 because they wanted to get out of paying back a debt, a credit card debt, or a car they shouldn't have bought. Crazy things like that. And here, it's affected them. Now, how does it affect you? And people will tell you, yes, I got something out of bankruptcy afterwards. Interest rates. You're not getting the best interest rates now that you just got out of bankruptcy. Yes, you can still purchase things if you structured it correctly, but you're paying a dear price for it, and you still have that black eye on your credit report. And creditors will respect someone who had a legitimate business that went into bankruptcy than they do a consumer who took the easy way out. And those easy way outs are going away anyway.
Let's talk about someone who lost their job, you know, and now they're in a position where they need bankruptcy in order to recuperate. How would that affect them as far as their creditors? You know, are they looking at this person and saying, well, they still took the easy way out when they're, you know, they lost their job?
No, not necessarily. Again, if that is their last resort, they lost the job, they had no other way of making an income, which sometimes I find that hard to believe. You know, I don't know. I believe in the true hustle spirit. As long as you are physically able, you can do something to make a living and work, even if it's not your normal thing. I've done jobs that have not been normal for my profession when things have gotten tight to make ends meet. So, but let's say the person really could not find anything comparable and they filed it that way. Here's what I suggest you do. You add a consumer statement to your report. It's a 100-word statement basically saying what happened. The credit reporting agency has to show that to future creditors, and then I'd suggest to the person you carry that letter with you along with documentation of what happened. Then a creditor will look at your situation given what has happened to you and make a determination. And it really does work when you document yourself well.
I've never heard that. I've never ever heard of that. You add a consumer statement, so you call the creditors, you add this to your credit report.
You put it in writing and you send it to the credit bureau. And the bureau adds it to all 3 of your reports. Yeah, and then there is a fee for it, and the fee varies, but it's worth paying it if you had a legitimate reason why you filed that bankruptcy. And or you can use that consumer statement if you had a dispute with a creditor and you never got it resolved, but you don't pay and they keep reporting it. You can add a disputed statement to your credit report as well that explains your end of the story.
Now, we only have a short time. Are we missing some things? Because there's so much I want to ask you, but I know I only have you for a short time. And we can be here, honestly, for like 12 hours talking about so much when it comes to credit. And I tell you, I've attended one of her workshops. It was so good, I had to pay for my mom to attend the workshop because you learn so much. And even in your workshops, you're taking packages of information home to empower yourself, so you can be that type of person where you're not being pushed over by a creditor, you're not being pushed over by somebody calling your house or even harassing you, so you put the power back in the people's hands. Let's talk about some other tips really quickly so we can get you out of here that people can do to empower themselves with their credit, Gabriella.
People need to become educated. What I consider myself as an advocate and a catalyst. What I'd like you to do, I couldn't possibly answer every question in everyone's credit situation, so I do a lot of private counseling as well. However, here's what I say. Start reading all about credit. When you see articles in magazines, when you go on websites, hey, I go on the Federal Trade Commission's website. I go to the and look at the laws. Now, I know a lot of people won't do it because they may find it boring. The beauty of nowadays with information, you can sort through what you need. But one act I do suggest everyone read is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. These are foundations that we need to have. Sometimes we have a debt collection because of a mistake. Do you know what to do? So we need to educate ourselves. We need to get all of these books. I mean, Clean Up Your Credit for Dummies. I believe there's a book out there like that. I mean, you guys, all I've done to acquire my knowledge is I read like a maniac, you know, but this is my passion, so I love it. So I read about finance, I read about credit, I read about the laws. Have a knowledge, because no one cares about your credit file or your consumer report file better than you. Nobody that you could pay. I know people who have paid so-called counselors and lawyers to look out for them, and the person didn't follow through, but the individual's credit was ruined or hurt because of it. So understand that this is very important to you. This is future livelihood, future business opportunities. My goodness, going on vacation, you need credit. Everything is tied to it. So we need to educate ourselves, Nana, and look at our reports. People say once a year. I say twice a year. Every 6 months, when you change the batteries for the fire alarm, pull your credit. Pull your credit.
You know what? I know I was going to release you, but you said two things that I think are significant. Let's talk about, before you leave, I trust you. I know of your work, and I know of people who work within your workshops. How do you know you have a reputable credit counselor? When do you know that this person's reputable, and I know that what they said they're going to do, they're going to do? Because it's a new thing now. You're seeing a lawyer saying, I can help you get this low payment. And it's very scary because you're wondering, like, can you really? You know, so how do you know, if you're in that position, knowing the information you know now, what would you tell someone if they were, well, we know people can come to your company, but what would you tell someone, you know, if they're in that situation?
Okay. What I tell people is, are all your questions being answered? And whatever they say that they will do, are they willing to put it in writing to you? And do they have any other testimonies with written proof of other people they've helped that you can talk to? It's just like shopping for a contractor. I want proof that you did 20 other people's roofs correctly. And I actually, when I went to get a roof, I called. He says, you can call different customers. I did, and they were satisfied. And it was random calls, so I know it was real. The other thing is we have to trust our spirits and our instincts. If somebody feels a little shady or snaky to you, get up and walk away.
With your security card, your social security number in hand, and don't leave it with them.
Right. Do not give information unless you feel totally comfortable with that person. And I think a lot of times we push our instincts aside, and we shouldn't. We should be paying attention to those.
The last question. I know that there are some credit agencies where they allow you to look at your credit report and check it if something comes on. Do you recommend that? Do you like that? Is it something that you will utilize?
I don't personally utilize it because maybe I go overboard, but I look at my credit 4 or 5 times a year because I'm a businesswoman and I do a lot of things. So I protect myself. However, I'm not against them. Just know that you still need to be responsible for your credit. And if you're a busy person, it will help you. Just understand, before you go shopping, this is a big one. I tell everybody this. Before you go mortgage shopping, car shopping, anything you need to use your credit for, pull your credit first and look at it so that if there's any discrepancies, get them cleaned up before you go shopping. Don't allow people to know your credit more than you do, or better than you do. You should know it better than anybody at all times.
Even if you're buying a car, that's true.
Absolutely. They're going to pull your credit. So you pull your credit first. You don't go in wishing, you go in empowered. I know I have good credit. I know I can get this loan. And it gives you a lot better vantage point when it comes to negotiating prices.
So we have to have her on again. We have to have her on again. Gabe, I love your work. You are doing a wonderful job in the community. I appreciate you. This is my buddy, you all. And I tell you why, because she treats people good. Listen, she's going to be doing seminars coming up this year. Am I right?
Yes.
I need a number.
Oh, you can reach me at my cell phone, and then I'll give you my office. My cell phone number is 248-763-7376. My direct line at the office is 248-406-3276.
Even if you're doing mortgages, the woman will treat you right. Listen, we can't market and sell anybody, but I tell you, I have learned so much from your workshops. I've been empowered. I think even the crew who was around here like, wow, I need to check my credit report. I thank you all so much. This is Talking with Nana, and I thank you for following the career. You've been wonderful, and I'm looking forward to seeing great and powerful things happen in your life.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. So next time, now we know how to make the money on Talking with Nana. We'll be right back.